So leave it up to Zen to reveal all the secrets of the universe to you freely. What do all of these images have in common? Look at all of them. What are they all? Should be very obvious at this point. We're going to talk about the connection between all of these symbols, the simple word, and blood, the lungs, spirit, breath, energy, currency, fluidity. So here, if you haven't figured it out, on the left you have Atum, on the right you have Atum, you have an ATM, you have an Atom, and you have Atum. You also have, not imaged on this page, but what it is when you are told about the place of the temple, or the body. The body is a tomb in itself. It's where the spirit resides, inside of a tomb. We could get into more allegory of the story of the Jesus and the Christing and the crossing of energy, and Adam's rib. But essentially the story is, as it's connected to the demigods, the miniature gods, as letters or ladders. We could even make a connection to Jacob. We can make a connection to currency through water and money and moon gods, but we're not going to go that far. We're going to start right at the basic principle of how you exist. The only thing that you need to know is, where does the currency come from? Where does the energy come from? And every picture on this page is the same thing. I could source a lot more with the same principle, because really an ATM, a T and a D are the same letter. And we could get into trademarking even. But we're not going to do that quite here. I'll do that as a furthering video at some time. But what we notice about the atom, whether you're a Christian or a science buff, or you believe in your Kemetan sciences and Anakakten and all of these Egyptian gods and goddesses, or whether you believe in energy through the material world and money, or whether you dip into the other realms of realizing the body is just a house for the spirit and understanding what the tomb is. We could even source information I'd done prior on cancer and what a tumor is. There's a lot we can go on there, but I want to refocus into the center of this thing. An atom is the first thing that occurs. That's the origination point. No matter what practice, what philosophy, what you believe in, that's the source of it. Atom. That atom, how does it exist? Everyone says it's 99.9% empty space, and it comes out of the mind. But even if we release that idea and just call it a physical thing, it exists in this physical landscape, we still know that that atom exists as a, well, you could call it a spirit molecule, a molecular construct of the spirit, which is the breath. And we're going to get into the heartbeat and the lungs. When a baby is born, when the first impregnation of a seeding occurs, whether it's a baby or a child of a plant, and we'll get into plants, and I'll explain to you how this works from the plant platform and from the human platform. I don't know that I'll get into plants in this video, but certainly the human platform of what you consider, and we'll get into consciousness and a couple other things there. But when the seed impregnates the inside of the womb, that first atom, we can turn that into a cell, and we can turn into a lot of different words. It splits itself. It redundifies its same exact system. It becomes itself again. And that first thing, as an atom, is already living. It's not breathing necessarily. It has no blood necessarily. Everything is made up of atoms, yes? This is easy. No matter who you talk to, they'll tell you everything is made up of atoms. So if you're made up of atoms, which don't seem to need to breathe, and don't need food or blood, what you have in your body, as George Carey and many others have talked about, is the singular, first originating immortal cell. The primordial cell that you can't find in the body that produced every other cell in you. That's your atom. And out of that became you. So you're a bunch of atoms. Those atoms don't eat anything. And in fact, if you go to school and you remember anything, anybody could tell you this. When you took all your low-level science classes, they told you that nothing ever touches anything else. There's always a correspondence or a changing from positive to negative. There's a charge distribution that's occurring. Nothing ever touches. Nothing's ever happening. You see? The initial source of you that became all of the parts of you are all exactly the same thing. It reproduced itself. It needed no food because food doesn't exist, only as a material dense realm to pull you to where you are now. This is the separation. This is the truth of the eating of the apple. The eating of these things means the ingestion of the physical world. There's a few more allegories that are told in that story, but it is really about consuming a physical object and making yourself denser into this realm, because it's not the food that's giving you life. Anybody knows this, because when you eat, the first thing that happens is you become tired. It takes a while for you to get the energy from that food. Why? Because it's not an exchange of physical matter. It's an exchange like a mirror. It's a reflective quality. It's an energetic thing. that from this you get that it replaces something. Negative and positive ions. This is the breath work. When they tell you that your heart beats and that causes the body to exist, that's not true. It's faulty. It's been misplaced. They tell you that you need food to live and survive. That's not true. That's faulty. They tell you, and if you get into even low-level mysticism, they'll tell you that you need your stomach to produce, and not your stomach, but your bowels, to produce a chemical reaction. Now, this is slightly in the right direction, a chemical reaction to occur within your blood to pressurize your heart for it to beat. That's partially true, and that's true for most people. But when you bypass all of those systems, all you need to do is breathe, because there's a chemical exchange happening there. You're dealing with the levels of, as I've always put it, there's 3 levels. There's the solid, the liquid, and the air. You're dealing with the ether realm, the air realm. You're processing things immediately by breathing. And if you breathe in, that makes your heart beat because you're pressurizing your entire system. The pressure that you make, this is why the faster you breathe, the faster your heart goes. The slower you breathe, the slower your heart goes. So for anybody to think it's the other way around, you've been misguided. Now, certainly different chemicals and substances can go into your body to cause a lot of chemical reactions within your blood. But your blood processing center is your lungs. Now, if you don't put any food in your system to have to be processed, we can get back to the original source of what the atom is. If your body becomes a literal atom unto itself, what would you need to do other than breathe? Other than exchange the electrical charges in your system? You wouldn't need to do anything else. You wouldn't need to eat anything. Why would you need to eat? We already know that the sunlight will ionize water. We already know that the sun causes, when we look into the plant world, and somebody says something like, well, that's photosynthesis. Yet, you can't really explain that well. How did all of that occur? And then we look at the different salts, dead salts in the ground, and I've explained this in some of my earlier videos, and I'm not going to go too far into this here. But there's nothing. The plant isn't eating the dirt, and it's not eating the salt. It's a reflective mirror. It's called a miracle. It's a mirror clue. It's a clue to the mirror of what the salt cube is. And when the salt is in the ground, it's mirroring something from the dead world into the living world, from the inorganic world into the organic world. And that's how plants exist. These plants implode their seed, suck up water and sunlight, and the sunlight ionizes the water to produce the reflection of the mineral content of what's in the salts as a cube within the soil. Now, you sitting there as something that is a god, growing your soul out of the soil, you don't have the same types of restraints as the animal kingdom, nor do you have the type of constraints that a plant has, because you can get up and walk around and move, and you breathe slightly different. You can change your inspiration, your spirit. Your spirit is your inspiration, and when you expire, if you choose to. As you breathe, the breath is called the spirit. And this is why I speak at length about the things that are called the spirits. Different types of liquor, alchemy, alcohol, alchemet. El is the god. Kemet. We can get into the gods and goddesses of Kemet. And we can get into the magic that came out of these places. But as we sit here trying to steer you into the central version of what you exist as, you are the source of all energy and everything, because the first thing inside of you was an atom. You are Atum. You are energy that exists without anything. It just happens to be so. You can't explain it. You're the source of it, the generator of it. You're the created and the creator. And it needs no blood. It needs no food. All it needs to do is have spirit. And you can get that in a lot of different ways. The imagination is the basic form of spirit. How can you prove this to yourself? Well, you got no power, you got no energy. You're just laying there. You got no money in the bank. You're laying on the floor. You're tired. If someone came in to your house and gave you a ticket that had the numbers on it to win the lottery. Someone came in and dropped off a briefcase full of $1 million. All of a sudden, everything would change. Now, one of the things that would change is your breathing patterns. And those breathing patterns would affect your brain patterns. And those patterns of the breathing that you're doing would have an exchange of negative and positive energy. What you'd call the blue and the red, the blue blood and the red blood. And in the economic system is what you have is the red and the black. Now, black and blue are very closely bonded together. This is why you have a red pen and you have a blue and a black pen, because they're the same thing. This is why you get a black and blue eye. This is why black is almost blue. So, this is all to say that the original source of everything, what you need to actually have in your system, is absolutely next to nothing. Thanks for nothing. Maybe I'll continue on this in a part 2, but thanks for nothing, everyone.